Again, my name is Tort Dennis. I work for a environmental consulting company called WSP, and we do a number of different services relating to the environment, compliance, sustainability. I work for the environmental division of WSP, and I lead what's called the Sustainable Product and Supply Chain Practice. So basically, my clients are primarily high-tech, IBM, Seagate, Avaya, companies such as that. And they all come to us because they realize that they have a supply chain issue with regards to product compliance. Before I went to WSP, I worked for Siemens PLM Software, and we built the Team Center Product Lifecycle Management solution. And one of the things that we came to realize very quickly was that from our customers, 80% of the products that they put on the market was built by a supplier, by a third party, by a partner. And most companies do this today. They outsource these products to take advantage of efficiencies, to lower the risk, to be more competitive. But by doing this, they introduce a lot more risk into their process because now they have less visibility into the materials and the processes that go into the products. So what I'm showing up here is just a breakdown of an iPhone from Apple, something everyone in here is familiar with. Apple's another one of our customers, and they need to comply with regulations such as the RoHS regulation, the REACH regulation, the battery directive, conflict minerals. All of these pressures are being put on these manufacturers, and they're being pushed down to the suppliers. And as a result, the suppliers now need to take a bigger role into knowing what's in their products. Oops. So this is why they come to us. And my clients come to me because they need to get good data. And this is a big challenge. Before you can do the LCAs, before you can do the environmental compliance, before you can do your sustainability analysis, before you can do any of those things, you need to be able to get good data. And this is a tremendous problem. So when you start looking at somebody, for example, like Apple or Microsoft, you'll find out that their suppliers are many, they're legion. And a lot of them are small. They are 5 people in Guangdong, China somewhere, somewhere in Malaysia. They may speak English. They definitely speak English as a second language. They're globally dispersed, so they are in different time zones. They're in different regions with different types of technologies. They may have, they definitely are technologically advanced because they can build these products, but they may not have internet access like we do. They have technologically challenged, and by that I mean they don't have access to be able to understand what's in their products. These guys are trying to make a living, so if they're going to build a bracket, they go out and source from the lowest cost provider based on the engineering specifications, and they build this product for you. They don't have a lot of knowledge about regulatory directives across the world. This is something that the clients, my clients, are concerned about or track, and then they push this down to the suppliers. So for example, an IBM needs to know how to comply with the REACH regulation for all the products they sell into the EU. They need to have provisions for taking back electronics and waste equipment. once they sell it into the EU. They need to know if they have tin, tantalum, tungsten, and gold if they're going to sell into the US because of the Conflict Minerals Directive. And so now they need to get all this information down to their suppliers, and their suppliers don't necessarily know where their end product is going to end up or where their component is going to end up. They know they have to build a resistor. They know they have to build a bracket. And it's going into something that IBM wants. Now, they may have a better idea of what the final product will be, but they don't ultimately know where this product will be shipped. And then for a lot of them, depending on where they're located, sustainability is not their major focus. So they don't capture this information. Their job and their concern is to build a product, to build the best product they can, but there's not a real standard that they're concerned where they measure themselves against their competitors. So this comes from the client, IBM, the Microsofts of the world, giving this information down to them. So this is the challenge that my clients face. And the supply chains vary drastically. I've got a company that has $15 billion in revenue, and they have 500 suppliers. I've got another client that has only $815 million in revenue. They have 2,000 suppliers. So you can start to see the scope of the challenge that these guys are facing. And just looking at this iPhone, you can see, in fact, if you look at the back of your iPhone, it says designed in California, built in China, or assembled in China. You start looking at this, components come from Japan, Korea, Germany, the US, all over the world. And so they come to us because they don't have the necessary manpower to make this work. And a lot of my clients have invested money in technology trying to make this process better. But again, if you don't get good data, you end up with garbage results. So thinking about this, talking to Brad and preparing for this presentation today, I decided to make just a short list of what are the things that I've seen that are necessary that would make this process easier. So since we're here at COFES, technology software, the biggest issue is making it simple. I have a lot of clients who have very powerful ERP systems, PLM systems, and what happens is it breaks down at the supplier level because, first of all, the supplier doesn't have access or can't have access to this system. They have to build a portal in order to be able to bring this information into the information for the supplier. And then you have to segment the information so the supplier only sees what he needs to see. Process needs to be automated. We have a lot of suppliers who I have a client who has a portal, and I have another client who relies purely on email. The client who relies on the portal requires the supplier to, first of all, know every substance, every material, and the amounts in every product they build. And then to be able to log into this portal, put in a username and password, type this information in, and then send this off to my client. First problem that happens is you guys are all familiar with hopefully with the Heartbleed virus or security risk in SSL. There's a lot of unscrupulous people out there, security issues with websites. Second issue, passwords. People forget their passwords. If there's someone logging in China, which is 12 hours ahead of us or behind us, if they can't get in, they need to be able to get to someone who can tell them what their username and password is. Then you have got the language barrier. People need to be able to put this information in a system in a way that is intuitive to them. So in their natural language, which can then be converted to a language that the client can use. The process has to be automated. I have another client who uses email for all of the correspondence. And what they do is they fill out a spreadsheet, or they pre-populate a spreadsheet. They email this off to the supplier. The supplier gets a spreadsheet. He fills in the information. He emails this back. Sounds very simple in theory, and it cuts out the whole process of the need for a username and password, because everyone uses email. But in this process, you still need a lot of automation, because you need to track who this thing was sent to, when is the due date, what is their progress on filling out this information, did they send it back, and if they did send it back, then you need to go through and you need to check it for correctness. You need to check it for completeness. Once you've done all of that, then you can do your LCA, then you can do your compliance analysis. So one of the other problem that we see is a lot of these processes are not automated. I have a staff of 15 people in Manila, and Manila because labor is cheaper than the US. And that's all they do is send out these forms, track where it went, who has received it, have they responded, what did we collect back, who do we have to nag to get this information. And once we get all this information, then we have to go through it and take a look through it and say, what did they report? Did they report any lead, any cadmium? Another level of analysis is, what type of product is it? Is it a resistor? Resistors typically have copper in it. Did they report copper? Did they report this? Did they report that? So all of this automation is what's required for software to be able to make this process easier. One of the things that we do with our clients is we help them to define their process. We help them to define their process from the beginning to the point where they file or where they ship this information to the reporting body. And once they've defined their process, another key point here is to be able to train your suppliers. You can't always do this face-to-face. Again, people are in different time zones. People have different languages. There are cultural barriers. We found that in this age of virtualization, we use online training a lot, web-based training a lot, multimedia, WebEx, GoToMeeting recordings. There's a mixture of different ways of getting people trained. But that's imperative, because if you want to get information correct the first time, you've got to make sure people know how to do it correctly. You can't just assume that they know how to do it. And then last but not least, I can't emphasize more strictly or more strongly standards. We've got to have standards. And this is one of the things that we face all the time. I've got a client who has a spreadsheet, and they're very proud of it. The spreadsheet has 13 different tabs in it. And each tab is for a different regulation. One's for ROS, one's for REACH, one's for conflict minerals, one's for the battery directive. Just looking at it makes you tired. But they do this because there's a lot of information that they really want to capture so that they can be able to analyze this for every possible regulatory directive there is out there. But what happens is that if every one of my clients sends this same document out to that supplier, a document like this, my supplier gets fatigued. So he's getting one document from Microsoft, a different document from Apple in a different format, a different from Seagate. He quickly starts to just fill in the blanks or hit the check marks very quickly so he can get this off his plate. So standards like IPC 1752, 1752A for material declarations, EICC template for conflict minerals, are very good for collecting this information, but that whole process needs to be improved. So I've run out of time here. And what I wanted to do was just quickly, in summary, show what we do today. And the question up there is our supply chain practice sustainable? And at this moment, it's not. It's a source of income for us, but the reality is my job is to put myself out of business. What we do right now is we analyze, interpret, identify local regulations. We develop the business requirements and the processes. We help our customers to understand how they're going to collect this information. We download their supplier information. And the supplier information is always incorrect. Always incorrect. People change jobs, people move to different companies, people move to different places. That information is incorrect. We train the suppliers how to complete these forms. We have to provide help desk support. These are things that we're looking to software to help us automate and improve. We have to send these forms to the suppliers, receive them, track what's outstanding, what's been received, what's correct, what's incorrect, why they're incorrect, how to correctly correct those problems. And then once we have them, we upload them into the system where we can now analyze them and do all the different reportings and documentation. Very, very manual, error-prone process, time-consuming process. So when I start looking at sustainability, I start looking at the future. Automation is a big part of what's going to save us, making this simple, intuitive, so it doesn't intrude into our daily activity, because this is a reporting requirement. My job is to make this part, not to spend. I don't want to hire a person just to do reporting and data collection. But the reality is that today that is exactly what happens, is in a lot of these suppliers, they have a person who's been hired just to do this job of filling out all these different forms and responding to all these different requests. Thank you.
Thank you.